So we basically got a trailer for the Nintendo Switch. For people who might not know what the Nintendo Switch is, it's basically the next generation of Nintendo hardware. It was originally titled the NX for a code name, and I said this on Twitter not too long ago, but to me it sounds like the code names are infinitely superior compared to the actual names. I'm not really a fan of the Nintendo Switch brand name, but that's besides the point. Let's move on to the rest of the gaming news and everything else you need to know about the system. The console certainly lives up to mostly everything we heard of, speculated, and the rumors were definitely true about this being a mobile console hybrid. In the reveal trailer itself, not only could the controllers be detached from the base of the console itself, but it could be taken anywhere. That's pretty damn cool if you ask me, and I think this is one of the first consoles this gen that emphasized on the prospect of gaming anywhere you want on the go with the console itself. Regardless of all the flag people really give Nintendo, that could be a bit of a game changer for most people who are always on the go, are always mobile, and they don't have the time to sit at home and game. The console can be hooked up to a standard TV, of course, for gaming at home needs, and can be detached a lot from the base. I know I went over this point a little bit in the video, but this is a very important point considering the fact that people were playing the Nintendo Switch in their cars, as a standard console, and as a handheld, which means the Switch is probably going to have multiple stands that you could buy for launch for console placement. Let's talk a little bit about controllers. So the controllers have two variations. They have the mini controllers that look like mini Wiimotes, which is not too bad, and then they have the standard bigger controller, which reminds me a little bit of how the Xbox One controller is in terms of appearance. So I'm glad that Nintendo is giving the player more options in terms of controllers than the touchpad itself being mandatory, which is what upset people with the Wii U. I also want to clarify something strange. It seems you can play the controller from the charger of the Nintendo Switch, given the fact that we saw this detached base from it. It has its own dedicated buttons too. It's so weird. It's like, I don't know how this is going to work, but I personally would have preferred a USB cord for the charging. I know it has USB ports, but this whole base with the controller is so awkward and strange. At least it's detachable from the base standard controller, which looks like the Xbox 360 controller. Now, here's a little bit of the specs. I'm only going to go over the key bullet points that interest me, or the bullet points that are the most important, like the storage space. Now, the storage space is only 32 gigabytes, which I thought was going to be a little bit more bigger for modern games. Maybe you'll get more storage choices around launch. However, there's also SD card support, so there's that. It's also going to be 720p only on a portable touchscreen. However, the elephant in the room hasn't quite been addressed yet in these regards to frame rate. So I'm hoping they get more info out there soon about the frame rate and how it plays and how it performs. So there's a custom NVIDIA GPU chip in the Nintendo Switch. This is certainly an interesting bullet point because it's very interesting to see Nintendo get a major player on board like NVIDIA. The best news here of all to me is the fact that the Switch will not be region locked, so all games can be played and imported from all territories. There's a negative on here as well, which is the fact that the the Switch, I'm never going to get over calling it the NX, but the Nintendo Switch has a problem with cooling apparently, according to some reports. And this notion is still a wait and see affair, but again, if the console does have cooling issues, then that is a very, very huge problem, and it needs to be ironed out as soon as possible. Last but not least, there's a bundle of partners here that are working with Nintendo that are giving third-party support. So I want to put this on screen for you guys so you can see them all. So I'm going to give you a minute of some Max Payne music. Enjoy. So let's get to the outro of this video, the final thoughts. It looks like Nintendo kept third party in mind, which is great because this is a great way of improving over the Wii U, where the console support died in mid-cycle. All the third party developers started to dip out because They know that the hardware was inferior for their games, and of course developers like keeping up with the times in terms of tech, so it's good that they are capitalizing with partners. But the real question is, can the Nintendo Switch maintain? Personally, we don't know this yet, but personally, I liked the mobile aspect of the system. However, there's still some hard-hitting questions that need to be addressed here. These hard-hitting questions pertain to the performance of the console. Will it run well? It pertains to the use of cartridges, because if you remember back in the N64 days, there was a clear detriment to the N64 because it used cartridges over discs. You have to remember things about the frame rate. They didn't say if games were going to be in 60 FPS or improved or not. What does this NVIDIA GPU chip really do for the performance and frame rate of the Nintendo Switch? And they didn't talk about the Wii U backwards compatibility yet, which is also a big point that they need to touch on. So there are some unanswered questions here, and I would say I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon and say I want the system immediately. They have to show me a lot more before I invest into a Nintendo product. And I think the price hasn't been revealed yet, but I expect a hot $200 because Nintendo, they never try to go higher than their competition. So this is Renegade Operative signing off. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this comprehensive gaming news update. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and hopefully you enjoy all the news and relevant information and editing when it comes to giving you information, giving you feedback, and giving you thoughts on the Nintendo Switch. Take care.